Our next speaker had a distinguished career on Wall Street, working for Merrill Lynch, Bank of America, UBS Securities, and then one day he heard that noise. The government came knocking, and so he decided to go into public service. And just in June of this year, Stefan Selig was confirmed by the U.S. Senate to serve as President Obama's Undersecretary of Commerce for International Trade. He leads the International Trade Administration, which assists in the development of U.S. trade policy in the global economy. He has a number of other portfolios that keeps him rather busy. The Executive Director of the Travel and Tourism Advisory Board. He also sits on the Board of Directors of the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, and he's a commissioner for the Congressional Executive Commission on China. Please give a warm welcome to Undersecretary Selig.
Good evening. Thank you, Mike, for your introductory remarks. I don't speak Mandarin. I'm a New Yorker, so some of you may think I don't speak English either, but I will continue in the language that I have learned. I would like to thank my gracious host, Chairman Yuan Ning, and the Chinese General Chamber of Commerce for the invitation and the opportunity to address this highly distinguished audience tonight. The audience members here today are part of a Chinese investment community that represents the fastest growing source of foreign direct investment into the U.S. So I would be highly remiss if I did not start my remarks by thanking the many investors in this room who have helped make this a reality and who, through their investments, bring our two economies closer, as the mayor has just said. So let me start by thanking all of you. I would also like to acknowledge Ambassador Shui, who I had the privilege of sitting next to in a meeting this evening, Senator Menendez, Governor O'Malley, and Mayor Gray. It is also great to spend some time with my former mayor, Mayor Bloomberg. Just like you can't really be a former New Yorker, I'm not sure he's my former mayor, so I will refer to him as my mayor for life, whether he likes that title or not. I just came back from his city, where we held our Discover Global Markets event on Tuesday, which was focused on expanding trade into the greater China markets. I delivered remarks at that event, the major theme of which was that it is important for public officials and business leaders alike to take the long view when it comes to the U.S.-China trade relationship. Indeed, if we allow ourselves to get stuck in the current challenges, which often can seem daunting, then we will not discover and optimize our true potential. And we cannot lose sight of the fact that we are talking about an export market in China that is our third largest export market in the world, our largest export market that is neither a free trade partner nor a border nation, and a market that supports nearly 800,000 American jobs. In reviewing my remarks this evening, I was reminded of something Robert Zoellick, the former United States Trade Representative and former Deputy Secretary of State, said on Charlie Rose a number of years ago. He said that whatever problem you take on in the world, global climate change, energy, issues in Iran, you have to ask yourself whether it will be easier to tackle it with China on your side or harder without. The implication, of course, being that you indeed want China on your side. And indeed, China has become a great power. The first thing that China had to do to get there was to reduce extreme poverty. Between 1981, around the time that China started adopting open market policies, and 2010, 680 million Chinese citizens have climbed out of poverty. In 1980, the percentage of Chinese citizens who lived on less than $1.25 a day was 84%. By 2010, that percentage had plummeted to under 10%. But we're not just talking about wages or per capita income. We're really talking about a fundamental and dramatic increase in the quality of life. In 2014, the UN Human Development Report states that in 1990, there were 47 countries that were in the low development group. That report relies on an index that combines education, life expectancy, and income data. Of those 47 countries, only one moved from the low development group to the high development group, and it was China. And while this is all obviously beneficial for China and the cause of global development, it really also directly benefits the U.S. economy. And it benefits the U.S. economy for two reasons. One, China has developed and continues to develop a consumerist middle class. McKinsey projects that the Chinese upper middle class will reach 76 million households by 2015. And an estimated 200 million Chinese are expected to move from rural and urban areas over the next decade alone. So it is no coincidence that the growth in exports to China over the past 30 years closely tracks the growth of this new middle class. In fact, last year was a record for U.S. exports to China, $122 billion in export sales just in the year. Two, China has developed an investment class. As the mayor said, all I need to say is one word here, Alibaba. And if that is not enough, China is the fastest growing source of foreign direct investment into the United States. Chinese FDI in the United States has been growing since 2009 at a compound annual growth rate of more than 40%. And if that is not enough, you can just go to the recently released Forbes China Rich List. China has a way to go before it catches up to the U.S. when it comes to billionaires. But a record 152 billionaires in mainland China in 2014, an increase of 25% from just last year alone. Staggering. Soon, they will catch up to the net worth at the table where I'm sitting this evening. So we should only ask ourselves whether it's easier to tackle global challenges with China on our side. We need to ask whether the U.S. economy can totally maximize its growth potential without China on our side. I think the answer is clearly no. Let me offer 3 examples to this point. First is foreign direct investment. As I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks, China is now our fastest growing source of FDI. We will look to build on this through our Select U.S.A. program, which is the government-wide effort to promote FDI into the United States. Select U.S.A. provides information and ombudsman services to investors as they seek to establish or expand operations in the U.S. market. And we indeed have a number of success stories to prove it. Select U.S.A. has been working with Fuyao Glass Industry Group, the second largest glass manufacturer in the world. Select U.S.A. staff advised and assisted Fuyao on a significant investment into the United States. That support played a role in Fuyao's decision to build a $300 million plant in Moraine, Ohio, that will likely create between 800 and 1,000 new American jobs. Select U.S.A., through our commercial service, stands ready to assist investors across China through the U.S. Embassy in Beijing and U.S. consulates around the country. The commercial service has its largest presence anywhere in the world in China, with over 130 staff working at the American Embassy and in 5 consulates in Shanghai, Guangzhou, Chengdu, Shenyang, and Wuhan. All told, we have twice as many staff in China as we do at the next largest commercial service post in the world. For those who have already invested in American businesses, we thank you for the investments you have made. For those who have yet to invest in American business, let us know what we can do for you at the Department of Commerce. Second is our collective push for subnational investment. We have seen the rise of subnational entities as real hubs of business and growth in both of our countries. For example, 3 provinces in northern China alone produce just under 10% of the nation's entire GDP. Those 3 provinces also have a private sector consisting of over 16,000 enterprises. In the U.S., we are seeing metropolitan areas emerge as major export hubs. Last year, 387 areas exported goods worth nearly $1.5 trillion. That is why both the United States and China signed the Memorandum of Understanding on Subnational Cooperation in 2011. Earlier this year, Select U.S.A. completed a roadshow in the Pearl River Delta region, bringing representatives from over 23 U.S. cities and regions to Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Chengdu, and Hong Kong. all in the interest of spurring subnational investment from these cities directly into our economy. The third thing I'll mention is travel and tourism. Travel and tourism is the largest service export in our country. Every dollar foreign travelers spend on a U.S. carrier to come here, and every dollar travelers spend in the U.S. while they're here, is a dollar in service exports. We welcomed a record 1.8 million visitors from China in 2013. Between passenger fares and spending in the country, those visitors spent a record $9.8 billion. Chinese travelers are buying American goods, eating in American restaurants, and lodging in American hotels. In just the past 8 years, total travel and tourism exports have increased by almost 400%. China today is our 7th largest export market in terms of total visitors, and our 6th largest export market in terms of travel and tourism spending. In conclusion, my job as Undersecretary of Commerce is to promote trade and investment for the United States. That means that I have to ask myself, will it be easier to promote trade and investment and spur economic growth and create jobs with an economy in China that represents our 3rd largest export market, a trade partnership that supports 800,000 American jobs, and an economic relationship with the United States representing the 2 largest individual economies in the entire world and $24 trillion of global GDP? The answer, of course, is clearly yes. We should keep that view in mind as we craft the commercial policy between our countries. That does not mean there are not some real challenges. I will be attending the Joint Commission on Commerce and Trade, or JCCC, later this year, and I assure you that our agenda is a robust one. And that does not mean that we will only look at commercial interests when we craft policies. In my first weeks as head of the ITA, I attended the Strategic and Economic Dialogue where I addressed drug safety regulation. As government officials, our view has to be broader. But we cannot lose sight. We cannot lose sight of the simple fact that the U.S.-China commercial relationship directly benefits American and Chinese businesses, as well as American and Chinese workers. In closing, I want to again thank the many investors in this room who have and will advance the U.S.-China commercial relationship. And I want to thank, in my short time here as Undersecretary, the many officials and businessmen from China who I have met that have given me such a warm welcome. Thank you.